Okay, so let us start off straight away. Om Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Veeryam Karvavahai Tejasvavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya, everybody. Okay, so we are on the 41st verse. We had finished the 40th verse last time, so let us chant this together. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Ekeha Kuru Nandana Bahushakhayanantascha Buddhayo Vyavasayinam. Okay, so as usual, I'm muting all of y'all. Now we look first at the grammar portion. So, Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi Ekaha Kurunandana Bahushakha hi Anantaha cha Buddhayaha. Vyavagraha is dropped. So, Avyavasayanam. Avyavasayanam. It's not Vyavasayanam, it is Avyavasayanam. The first word is Vyavasaya, the last word is Avyavasaya. And the Anvaya will become Iha Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhihi Eka, comma, He Kurunandana. First sentence. Iha Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhihi Eka, He Kurunandana. Or you can put Kurunandana at the beginning. So, He Kurunandana, Iha Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhihi Ekaha. Then, Avyavasayinam Buddhayaha Bahushaka hi Anantaha cha. Avyavasayinam Buddhayaha Bahushakaha hi Anantaha cha. So, Iha. Now, Iha means regarding this, here. Iha literally means here. So, here it regarding this. And what is this? This is all that sadhana that we are talking about, the means for moksha. So, Iha, regarding the means for moksha, Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhihi Ekaha. So, Vyavasaya Atmika is the well ascertained Buddhihi. Buddhi here does not mean the intellect. It means what is obtaining in the intellect, that is the knowledge. And therefore, Iha, regarding this sadhanani for moksha, Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhihi Ekaha. That well thought out, well ascertained knowledge is only one. He Kurunandana. Kurunandana means joy of the Kurus, who is the person who is the joy of the Kuru, which obviously Arjuna. So another name for Arjuna is Kurunandana. So the first line of the sloka is saying that regarding the means for moksha, there can be only one view. There are not multiple views. But the second line talks about the people who have no discrimination, and therefore avyavasayinam, or those people who have no viveka shakti, who have no discrimination, buddhayaha. So here, look at the first word, buddhi is knowledge, one knowledge, singular, buddhi. Buddhayaha is plural. So there are many ideas that they have, many various ideas or knowledge that they have about moksha. And therefore, bahu shakha. Shakha means branch, bahu means many. So there are many branches, there are many ideas that they have. Indeed, anantaha. He anantaha. He means indeed. Anantaha means infinite, countless. Therefore, he's saying that for the person who is a viveki, who is a discriminative person, there is only one clear knowledge that he has about the means to be followed for achieving moksha. While for those who are confused, who do not have the intellect, for them, there are multiple choices available. They think of it in multiple ways. Okay. Now, what is Krishna saying? If you look at the Shastram itself, if you look at the scriptures itself, you will find that in Karma Kanda, the prior portion of the scriptures of the Veda, there are multiple number of rituals or sadhanas prescribed, right? And it's not that we have only one scripture. We have primary and secondary scriptures. We have the Veda, which is primary, 4 Vedas. We have the Itihasas, we have the Puranas, we have the commentaries on the Vedas, we have the sub-commentaries on the Vedas. So you have Veda, Purana, Itihasa, you have Prakarana Grantha. Hundreds of texts are there, thousands of texts are there. And in each of these texts, you will find that there's a variety of disciplines or sadhanas being prescribed. So in some place, they will be talking about puja as the primary sadhana. Some places, they will say japa is primary sadhana. Some places, they will talk about dhyanam, meditation being the primary sadhana. And some places, they will say bhakti and bhajans are the primary sadhana. Some places, they will say you must go on tirtha yatras, pilgrimage, that is the primary sadhana. Then you will have various other things. You will say that music gives liberation. You know, dhyanam gives liberation. You will say there is a particular type of sadhana for a grahastha. And you have very, very stories. You will say that you will find that in some stories there was a butcher who got moksha. What was he doing? Only butchering. Then there are other things. You raise Kundalini. Then you chant Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame. That is sufficient. And some people say you chant the Ramayanam once, it is sufficient. You will get moksha. So most confusing because everything is contradictory. And the first line is talking about the karma yogi. Is the one who has a very clear understanding about which sadhana he has to practice. The first thing, he is clear that his ultimate goal is moksha. And he knows what is moksha. That itself is a problem, right? People talk about moksha being going to Vaikuntham and sitting with the Lord. So there are different ideas of moksha. For the karma yogi, the Vedantic seeker, he is the one who at least has got a clear idea what is moksha. Once having got a clear idea about the destination, about the objective, then he is also clear about the various practices, the various rituals, the various sadhana that he has to practice to get to that destination. So, sadhya, sadhana vishaya, nischaya jnanam. Sadhana is the discipline, sadhyam is the objective to be attained through that discipline. Nischaya jnanam, definite clarity is there. So there is clarity about means and ends, right? So for example, I want to go to Trivandrum for Ahmedabad. I must have clarity. What is the next step? What is the step after that? What are the intermediate steps, right? So the first step is I take a cab to Ahmedabad airport. Then I take a flight to say Bangalore. Then Bangalore, I change flights. I take another flight from Bangalore to Trivandrum airport. At Trivandrum Airport, I get down, I take a cab to the Nayadam ashram. So these are the first step, intermediate steps, and final steps. A clear idea of this, knowing what my immediate step is, knowing what the final destination is, knowing what the next step is, what is the objective of the next step, and therefore at each stage, knowing what is the step and what is the objective and what is the step coming after that. That clarity is called Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Clarity regarding what I want in life. So Buddhi means the knowledge, the clear understanding. And how does this clarity come? Because he has understood the message of the Shastra. He knows that ultimate goal is moksha, it is freedom. And if you are a thinking person, if you are a Viveki, you will know that ultimately, whether they know it or not, everybody works instinctively for freedom from insecurity. That freedom alone is moksha. And this freedom is not external freedom to run away from my problems, but inner freedom so that I can face my problems without getting disturbed. Right? I should be happy with myself without depending upon any other human being or his behavior or his presence or his absence. If you think of that in that manner, then you are coming near the idea of what Shastram says is freedom. Okay. Remember that most of us, what we will be doing, we will be thinking about being happy only when some other person is there, or when some person behaves in a manner in which I want him to behave. So his presence or his or her presence or absence or behavior determines my happiness. Shastra says no. Your happiness should be dependent upon yourself. The presence or the absence or the behavior of anybody else is not a factor which should be affecting your happiness. And when you can do this, then and then alone are you proceeding towards inner freedom, otherwise called moksha. So this Shastram says, Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham. Paravasham is dependence. All dependence is sorrow. Sarvam Atmavasham Sukham. All self-dependence or independence is happiness. It's a very beautiful line to remember. Sarvam Paravasham Dukkham, Sarvam Atmavasham Sukham. Dependence is sorrow, independence is happiness. And therefore, my goal is this freedom, this happiness itself. And the Karma Yogi has recognized one very important fact, that this freedom he need not seek anywhere outside, in any person, in any event. He has recognized that this freedom is natural to himself. Now here it's a very important distinction between a Karma Yogi and a Jnani. What is the distinction? The Karma Yogi has recognized that the freedom is natural to him, but he has not claimed that freedom. He has not been able to claim that freedom successfully because the necessary purity of mind has not been there, right? And once having recognized that this freedom is natural to me, then I utilize jnanam as the sadhana, as the means for discovery of that freedom. Therefore, freedom is the objective, jnanam is the tool, jnanam is the means. And for jnanam, for knowledge, and jnanam when I say shastra jnanam, knowledge of Vedanta, I require a prepared mind. If I have to study MSc Physics, the minimum I should have is at least a BSc Physics, right? Any knowledge requires preparation. And self-knowledge being the ultimate knowledge requires tremendous preparation, which we call Chitta Shuddhi or Jnana Yogyata or fitness of the mind, the purity of the mind. And for this Jnana Yogyata, what should I practice? Karma Yoga. So take the path of Karma Yoga, practice Karma Yoga, get Chitta Shuddhi, or Jnana Yogyata. Therefore, Karma Yoga gives you Jnana Yogyata. Jnana Yogyata makes you eligible for Jnanam. You go to Jnanam, do Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and discover that internal freedom. That internal freedom which is called moksha. So under Karma Yoga, there are a huge number of practices. You have a huge choice. You can do puja, you can do japa, you can do dhanam, you can do yajna, you can do asana practice, you can do pranayama practice, you can do bhajans, you can go to tirtha yatra. All this will have a classification of karma yoga. All that has one objective only, chitta shuddhi, jnana yogyata. That clarity we should have. What sadhana gives what end? You cannot say that puja will give moksha. Puja will give you chitta shuddhi. Japa will give you chitta shuddhi. Nanam will give you chitta shuddhi. Rituals will give you chitta shuddhi. Bhajans will give you chitta shuddhi. Bhakti yoga will give you chitta shuddhi. This clarity you must have. Which sadhana gives which result? And this karma yogi, he knows that any sadhana other than jnanam gives him only chitta shuddhi. Jnanam gives him chitta shuddhi. Jnanam gives him moksha. And therefore, he knows that first he has to do karma yoga and then he has to come to jnana. So the immediate sadhana, the destination of the immediate sadhana, the next sadhana, the destination of the next sadhana. Everything is clear in his mind. He knows where he is now. He knows where he has to be next. He knows what is the path he is taking, what is the ultimate goal. There is no confusion in his mind. And that is Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. The understanding is Eka, firm, unswerving, only one. Why does Krishna have to say all this? Because you look around you. Most people that we know of who are religious, for all practical purposes, they are religious people, right? But you ask them why they are doing something, you will realize that they are following the practice blindly. I am not denigrating that, right? Following a practice because it has been handed down to you by your parents is good. But if the parents have not told you why you are doing it, at some stage in your life, when the mental maturity is there, I should get up and say, okay, why am I doing this? Let me learn. It's not that I'm going to reject the practice, but I must know what is the purpose of puja. Why do I go to the temple? Why do I do Sandhya Vandanam? All these things I must know. But you ask most people, they'll vaguely tell you, oh, to see God, I go to the temple. So sadhana becomes less than useful if you don't know why you are doing it. And therefore Krishna says in the next line, Avyavasayana, for those who do not have clarity regarding the means and the ends, Bahushakaha, there are many branches of this knowledge. One day they will go to and listen to some Mahatma's discourse. That Mahatma will say, Bhakti Yoga is the greatest in this Kala Yoga. And suddenly they will go to start bhajans. Some other day they will go to some other discourse. And there will be a yogi there saying that raising the Kundalini is the best way. Then they will start Kundalini Yoga. Then they will go somewhere else and he will say the direct path is the inquiry, who am I? And therefore this fellow will go to who am I inquiry. He has dropped his Bhakti Yoga, he has dropped his Kundalini Yoga. He is flitting from branch to branch. There is only more and more confusion. It's like a rolling stone gathers no moss. It keeps rolling, gathers no moss at all. But this person, he will not blame himself. He will not blame the fact that he has not bothered to try to understand. He will say, this religion that I am following, practices are useless. And therefore he will give up at the worst case. At the best case, he will continue. He will have some punyam, of course, because they are all shastric mandated duties. So they will give you punyam, but they will not give you moksha. In the earlier days, the basic understanding about why these practices were there, what are the objectives out of each practice, was all given during Brahmacharya ashram. But today, they're all missing, and most of the people we know, they have ideas gathered out of what? Facebook and WhatsApp. And therefore, most of these ideas are just smart sounding ideas. So I have today lots of ideas without any basis. And therefore, Krishna's Anantacha. Countless notions I have. Countless notions about what is God, who is God, what is the world, what is karma, what is the objective of karma, is karma related to dharma or not, does karma arise from dharma, does faith arise from dharma, does faith arise from karma. Hundreds of questions, hundreds of ideas they have. The sad part is they do not question. They don't try to make some sort of sense out of that multiple number of ideas. They say this puja has to be done, I have to wear this dress, I have to do it in this manner. And where they haven't even bothered to ask a properly informed person. All these ideas picked up from countless number of sources. Therefore, these basics of these people are not clear, and therefore, buddhayaha avyavasayinam is a confused understanding. And as we can see, the first line of this sloka, of this 41st sloka, it refers to the person who is got a clear understanding of why he is doing sadhana, why he does karma yoga, why he does upasana yoga, why he goes to Bhagavad Gita class or Vedanta class, why he goes to chanting classes, why he goes to the ashram for for a week or 10 days or a month. Everything fits it, and the whole idea is clear to him. There is nothing random. He knows why he is doing what. That person is Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. Very important phrase. Vyavasayatmika Buddhi. The person who knows exactly why he is doing what and for what purpose. And the second line is about the person who has no clarity. So this whole verse is about the karmi versus the karma yogi. The karmi is a person who does not have any idea why he is doing this. Karma yogi is a person who knows exactly why he is doing what. And of course, Shastram only complicates matters, because Shastram says there are 4 Purusharthas. Right? This technical term, Chatur Purushartha, 4 Purusharthas, is used by Shastram itself. And so everybody thinks there are Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, 4 different Purusharthas are there. I can follow any one of them and get moksha, because Purushartha means what? That which you are supposed to follow in your life. So there are 4, so why can't I follow Artha only? Right? The problem is complicated because Shastram uses these terms. But remember that Shastra itself says multiple times, don't study on your own. Go to a teacher. And Shastra expects you to go to a teacher, to an acharya, who, while discussing the Purusharthas, will tell you that there is only one Purushartha. That all the 4 Purusharthas, they all collapse into one Purushartha, which is moksha. So moksha is the only Purushartha, the Angi. Angi is the main one. The Angi Purushartha is moksha. The rest are Angas. There's a difference between Angi and Anga. So Angi Purushartha is moksha. Anga Purushartha is Artha, Kama, Dharma. They are all supporting disciplines. They support the achievement of the main Purushartha, which is moksha. Then somebody will ask, what about all the thousands of rituals in Veda Purva, in Karma Kanda? There are rituals which you offer for money. There are rituals which you do for fame. There is Putra Kameshu Yajna, which you do for children. And Veda promises material benefits for each of these rituals, right? So if there is only Moksha Purushartha, why does Veda promise you all these things? So when you go to a teacher, he will tell you that, yes, Veda Purva promises material benefits. But one should understand that the basic intent of Karma Kanda, of the Purva Veda, is not to give you material benefits. Its basic intent is to give you Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogyata. And the Karma Kanda, the ritualistic various rituals which are there, which are meant for various material benefits in our life, they have to be performed with a particular attitude. And when you do that, that attitude will give you Chitta Shuddhi. That is the main intent of the Veda, or the Veda Purva. Right? And moksha is the ultimate end. And as one of the most famous Vedanta teachers in India, Swami Dayananda, has said, moksha is the infinite end. And the person who misses this infinite end, he will perceive infinite number of ends. Very beautiful statement. If you miss the infinite objective, for you there will be an infinite number of objectives. And Shankara clearly says that these infinite number of desires meaning kama, objectives which people have, they present them with what? Infinite samsara. Infinite number of desires I have, infinite number of objectives in my life I have, all the infinite number of material ends which I have, they present me with an infinite samsara, never-ending samsara. So any desire other than moksha is a gateway to samsara, is the basic principle underlying this verse. Okay, so let me just, it's an important verse. So in case you have any questions, we are open for questions.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we say that there are so many rituals in the Karma Kanda and each is for a certain material benefit, then like if a person does any kind of ritual for a certain material benefit, then will that person not get that benefit according to his prarabdh also? Because say if the prarabdh is, if in his prarabdh it's not there to get suppose a son. So just because he has done the ritual for the son, would he get a son? I mean, is the result is always prarabdh plus the prayatna. So when the ritual is
this is not the same. This the Veda when you take a pramanam, Veda says that if you do this, you will get this. There is no condition there. It doesn't say if you have prarabdha proper. So Putra Kameshri Yajna is supposed to give you a son if done properly. Only a defect in the performance of that yajna will, make sure that will ensure the result may not come. But if you have performed the yajna properly, the Veda Purva says yes, you will get.
So it's independent of the prarabdha.
Yeah, it's a Vedic statement. You have to accept it as a pramanam. When Veda says something will happen if you do something, there is no questioning that. That is what is meant by Shraddha and Pramana.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so another question is like in the beginning you mentioned that there are so many textbooks we have, Itihasa, Puranas, and all of them have so many different sadhanas they talk about. So aren't all our textbooks supposed to say the same thing?
They do say the same thing, or the interpretations are wrong. That is all. Every sadhana and every textbook ultimately gives you only one. I mean, any sadhana apart than jnanam. That's what I'm trying to say. Any sadhana apart than knowledge, apart from Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, from a competent acharya, any sadhana other than that will give you only jnana yogyata.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the way in which every text has to be understood. The text will say all sort of things. They are all called arthavada, for glorification of the sadhana.
Mm-hmm.
But interpretation has to be that if it is not jnanam oriented sadhana, then it is going to give me chitta shuddhi.
Okay.
That understanding is vyavasatmika buddhi.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what exactly is a karmi then? Who exactly is a karmi? What is his difference between distinction? I mean, like...
Karmi is one who does only for material benefits. Karma yogi is one who does it as an offering.
So a karmi does everything on a superficial level.
No, I think we'll come to and a broader discussion of that in a few later verses. So let's park that question for the time being.
Thank you.
Om Acharya ji,
Haji.
what does the word vyavasai mean in this context in Sanskrit?
Vyavasaya here means well ascertained, properly understood.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go on to the next verses. And here, if you look at the verses 42, 43, and 44, they are basically one long grammatical sentence. Okay, it's been broken up for the purpose of chanting into 3 verses, but effectively, grammatically, they are one long sentence. So we will chant them together and we will discuss all 3 verses in one shot. Okay, so let us chant the 3 verses together. Yamimam pushpitam vacham
यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं
prabhadantya vipaschitah vedavadaratav partha nanyadastiti vadinah
नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः
कामात्मानस्वर्गपराः
कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः
जन्म कर्म फलप्रदाम्
जन्म कर्म फलप्रदाम्
क्रिया विशेष बहुलाम्
क्रियाविशेषबहुलाम्
भोगैश्वर्य गतिं प्रति
भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति
भोगैश्वर्य प्रसक्तानाम्
भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानाम्
तयापहरत चेतसाम्
तयापहरचेतसाम्
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः
समाधौ न विधीयते
समाधौ न विधीयते.
Okay, so somebody, I heard the pronunciation Janma Karma Phalapradam. Is that right or wrong?
Wrong.
What is the correct pronunciation?
Phala.
Right. So please remember that in Sanskrit, that particular alphabet is not Fa. Fa is the Hindi pronunciation. The correct pronunciation is Pa. Okay, that's only by the way. Right. Now we look at the individual words. I will give you a running meaning so that the whole idea is immediately understood. Okay. So the first sentence is Avipaschitaha Veda Vada Rataha Anyat na asti iti vadinaha yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadanti partha. This is the 41st verse, 42nd verse, which can be read as Hey Partha, Avipaschitaha, the non-discriminating people. Veda Vada Rataha. You can understand Rataha, who are enjoying Veda Vadaha. These statements made by the Veda. Regarding what? Regarding karma. So Veda Vada Rataha refers to those people who are remaining absorbed in ritualistic karma which the Veda gives you. Like, any homam, avahanti homam, putra kameshtu yajna, all these are ritualistic karma which for material benefits, which is stated in the Karma Kanda. So Veda Vada Rataha is a person who is engrossed in those materialistic karma and therefore he is Avipaschitaha. Avipaschitaha means aviveki, non-discriminating. Say, hey Parthaha, Avipaschita Veda Vada Rataha. These people who are engrossed in karma, who are not vivekis, What do? Vadinaha. They argue. They propound the theory that anyat na asti. There is nothing other than this. Other than what? Other than this karma enjoined by the Vedas. And what do? Iti pravadanti. They say, yam imam pushpitam vacham. These flowery words. Pushpitam vacham. These flowery words. Okay. So this is where the first, what do you call, sloka ends, which is why I said it's a continuing paragraph. It's a one long sentence. And therefore we look at the next sentence also, where the breakup is kamat manaha swarga paraha bhogeshwarya gatim prati janma karma phala pradam kriya vishesha bahulam. And here you have to supply vacham pravadanti, they say, because the sentence is continuing, but since the break is there, this verb has to be supplied. Kriya pad is pravadanti, they say. So this is a continuation of what, and how does it continue? He says, kamat manaha, people who are full of desires. What is their major desire? Swarga paraha. Paraha is primary desire. Swarga is the primary desire. So these people who are full of desires for swarga, why? Bhogeshwarya gatim prati. So bhogam is pleasure and aishwaryam is power. So gatim prati, the aim for them of these Vedic karmas is the attainment of pleasure and power, of bhogam and aishwaryam. And therefore, what do? Kriya vishesha bahulam. So here you have to connect this to the earlier verse, which is what they utter all sort of flowery words. Okay, that you have to collect. So, and they utter all those imam pushpitam vacham, all those flowery words they attain. And in those flowery words, they talk about various type of special rituals. Kriya vishesha bahula. Bahula means many types of kriya vishesha, special kriyas, special rituals. And what is the objective of the special rituals? Janma karma phala pradam. Pradam means they give. These rituals are capable of giving you what? Janma karma phala. And you have to supply a better phala. So these rituals, vishesha kriyas, which are bahulam, many in number, they are capable of giving you many better births as well as better karma phalam. So janma is one result and karma phalam is another result. So they are capable of giving you better births and better karma phalam. And then you go on to the third sentence, which says, now it's talking about the same people. Bhogeshwarya prasaktana. For a person who pursue prasaktana, who pursue what? Bhogam and Aishwarya. These people are focused on pleasure and power exclusively. And because of that, Krishna says, because they are focusing only on pleasure and power, how is it described? Bhoga Aishwarya Prasakta. Prasaktanam. The nam at the end of the sentence is indicating the persons who are pursuing prasaktam, pursuing bhogam and aishwarya. Okay, people who pursue exclusively power and pleasure, their minds are apaharata. Apaharata means they're taken away. Aparata means to rob. Chetasam is the mind. So their minds have been taken away. Apaharata chetasam, which means what? That they have become avivekis. Because the mind is the one which gives you, and here mind has to be understood as intellect, not the emotional mind. The mind is the one which gives you discretion, viveka shakti. And because they are so blinded by their pursuit of pleasure and power, aparata chetasam, the minds have taken away. And how the minds have gone away, what is the cause? by all those flowery words, Imam Pushpitam Vacham, which give you all sort of results for all sort of rituals. So they have completely stuck in those things. They are not gone beyond that. They are stuck with the material world only, wanting only material results. And therefore he says, Taya, for those people, Vyavasayatmika buddhihi, a well ascertained, well thought out understanding, knowledge, na vidhiyate samadhau. So samadhau here is not samadhi of Yoga Sutra. Samadhau here means an instrument called the mind. And therefore, for such people, what kind of people? Bhogeshwari prasaktanam, who are pursuing pleasure and power exclusively, and apaharata chetasam, their minds have been robbed away. For them, taya vyavasayatmika buddhi, well ascertained knowledge, na vidhiyate samadhau, does not take place in their mind. Okay, that is the full sentence consisting of 3 verses. I'll just try to give you an English formation of that sentence. So it says, Hey Arjuna, hey Partha. Those indiscriminate people who are obsessed with the ritualistic statements made in the Vedas, which means what? Obsessed with the benefits promised by the ritualistic statements of the Purva Veda, and who are wanting to go to heaven, they always argue that there is nothing else to be done. And they are full of desires. They speak flowery words which talk about specific rites for specific rituals for attaining pleasure and power, but not knowing that these attachment to karma will lead to further births, which are the results of the actions. For such people, a well ascertained knowledge does not take place in the mind because they're attached to pleasure and power, and they have been influenced by these flowery words of the Vedas. They have not looked into the intent behind the flowery words. They have gone by the content only. So Veda, when you look at a statement, the intent is more important than the content. That they have forgotten. So in these 3 words, Krishna is strongly criticizing those people, avivekis, avyavasayinam, who do not have clarity regarding the ultimate goal, who are confused people. So there is a contrast between the karmi and the karma yogi. And to understand these verses,
Acharya ji, can I ask one question?
let me just finish and then we can ask, because the flow will stop otherwise. So, to understand these verses, we need to understand karma, human activity. So, all karma of a human being can be divided into 3 different types, which we will come across again and again and again in Bhagavad Gita. These 3 types are Sattvika karma, Rajasika karma, and Tamasika karma. So we'll briefly define them. Sattvika karma is that karma which may benefit you, no doubt, but it will also benefit a maximum number of people. And therefore, these karmas can be defined as selfless actions. Even though they actually benefit you, they also take into account the welfare and benefit of other people. So primarily, these actions are not centered around yourself. They are centered around the benefit to other people. Incidental benefit to you may be there, right? For example, you are building a charitable hospital. It is not something which is going to benefit you directly. What is the benefit to you? The benefit in terms of a peace of mind and chitta shuddhi. So incidental benefit for you is there, but basically the action is non-self-centered action, and that's Sattvika karma. Then there is Rajasika karma, where your actions are purely individual oriented. The benefit is for you or at the maximum for your family or extended family. Whether other people benefit or not, I am not bothered about. The primary motivation is I and my family should benefit. This is Rajasika Karmani. And there is Tamasika Karmani, in which, of course, there is a similarity with Rajasika Karmani, in that Tamasika Karmani only I benefit. The motivation is not only selfish, but there is an additional angle to this. Additional aspect of Tamasika Karmani is that I don't mind if other people are harmed, providing I benefit. Right? This is the difference between Rajasika Karma and Tamasika Karma. In both types, the benefit is only for me or my family. But Rajasika Karma, other people are not injured. Tamasika Karma, other people are injured. Therefore, Tamasika Karma involves damage to other people. Okay. What is the contribution of each of these karmas to me? So, Sattvika Karma contributes primarily to the inner growth of the person doing it. So, the net result is Jnana Yogyata. And these Sattvika Karmas not only produce that inner growth for me, but they produce outer benefits, material benefits for others. Like the case I gave of building a charitable hospital, or helping out in a old age home. All these are Sattvika Karmas, which are benefiting others primarily. Your benefit may or may not be there. Even if you benefit, it is secondary only. What about Rajasika Karmani? They primarily contribute to the material growth of the person doing the karma. But in terms of spiritual growth, there is a minimum contribution. Very slow contribution is there. There is no negative contribution. In Rajasika Karma, at the maximum, the spiritual growth is very slow or stagnant, but material growth is there. And Tamasika Karma, again, as I said, there may be material benefits. There will definitely be material benefits, but there will be, material hurt or harm to other people. So actions like cheating, adulteration, all these fall under Tamasika Karma. And while they may materially benefit you, they will have a negative impact on your spiritual growth. So again, the two aspects of Rajasika and Tamasika Karma are this. Rajasika Karma and Tamasika Karma both contribute to your material benefit. Rajasika Karma may at the most have a no growth aspect for your spirituality, and at the best it has a minimum growth level in spirituality. But in Tamasika Karma, they pull you down spiritually. There is a negative growth, and hence your real peace and happiness is not dependent upon the external benefit, upon the external growth. That is what Krishna is trying to say. That is what Shastram says. The real peace and happiness depends upon your inner growth alone, right? We are not saying that external growth will not give you any happiness. All the material accomplishments, they will definitely give you some joy and peace. But the primary contribution to my peaceful state of mind is contributed by my inner growth. And therefore, in these verses, Krishna is strongly criticizing those people who are committed to Rajasika Karmas. Remember here, if you look at it, Krishna does not criticize Tamasika Karma. Why? When Rajasika Karma itself is being criticized, there is no need to talk of Tamasika Karma. So all these three verses put together is one grammatical sentence. And rearranging the sentence, let's look at some of the key words. Okay. So, Avipashchitaha, verse number 42, the first line. The unintelligent people. Who are they? They think that material accomplishments alone can make my life successful. Money can buy me beds, I know, but money can't buy you sleep. We all know that, right? Money can buy you people, but it cannot buy you love. So there's an old Beatles song. I don't know if you know. I don't care too much for money can't buy me love. Very Vedantic aspect. Beatles touched upon that song. So money can buy many things, but there are many, many more important things in life which money will not capable of buying. And when I don't understand that, I am avipashchitaha. I am a aviveki, a non-discriminating person. And the second important word is Vedavadarataha. Many rituals prescribed in the Vedas for materialistic ends. And the people who are committed to these rituals without understanding the reason for the rituals, they are Vedavadarataha. So Rajasika Karmarataha, Sakama Karmarataha. Those who are doing karma only for materialistic benefits, without understanding that the ritual is ultimately meant to give you Chitta Shuddhi. They think the ritual is meant to give you material benefits. So Vedavadarataha. Then, na anyat asti iti vadinaha. So they are not interested in things like mortality, ethics, spirituality, heaven, what is more important thing in life. All these things they are not interested in. They consider life as, in the Hindi we were saying khao piyo maja karo, right? Khao piyo and maja karo describes this. Na anyat asti iti vadanaha. Eat, drink and be merry. And for them, Shastra uses a very strong word. They are called pramudaha. So mudaha means what? Fool. Pramudaha means prakarshena mudaha. An elevated type of a fool. A very intense fool is what is pramudaha. That word is very often used by Shankara. Then the next word is kamatmanaha. 43rd verse, first word. These people are focused only on physical pleasures, sensory pleasures. Remember that Veda itself talks about material pleasures. Veda does not run it down, does not criticize the pursuit of material pleasures. But what is criticized here is not understanding the reason, and therefore undue importance. Predominantly, you spend your life in sense pleasures. At what cost? At the cost of inner and spiritual growth. That is being criticized. And therefore, for such people, what is the highest growth, highest objective in life? Swarga Paraha. Heaven is the ultimate goal. And what do they do to get that heaven? They pravadanti. They spread their materialistic philosophy to everybody. They say this is the only thing that is there in this world. Everything else is rubbish. What do we learn from them? That materialism is Maya. Maya is always more attractive than Brahman. Okay. Remember that Maya will always be more attractive than Brahman. Brahman, poor fellow, has no form at all. How can he be attractive? And therefore, materialism is always more attractive than spiritualism. And Krishna is warning us here that such people, they spread this philosophy, so be careful. And then Shankaracharya says in Bhajagovindam, Satsangatve Nisangatvam. Choose your friends properly. Because from Satsanga, proper friendship, comes non-attachment. Nisanga. Sangatvam. And therefore Krishna here says, Pushpitam Vacham, flowery speech. And what is the type of flowery speech? Janma Karma Phala Pradam Vacham. All sort of activities will be spoken of. Kriya Vishesha Bahulam, varieties of projects and projects. You take up this project and this much profit is there. You take up the next project and so much profit is there. So in the modern parlance, we say varieties of ambitious projects which you are obsessed with. In Vedic parlance, we say varieties of rituals which you are obsessed with. So your projects are only replacing rituals. The basic thought is the same. Ultimately, what is the causality? It is Gita class. You don't know that one action will lead you to another action. You don't know that every action is going to suck you into the whirlpool of action. Remember again, Krishna is not saying that you should not get into action. Krishna is saying, get into action. but you should know how to gradually get out of action also, so that you can involve and dedicate yourself to higher pursuits. Otherwise, karma is like holding on to a tiger's tail. Once you have held on to a tiger's tail, what happens? You are chasing the tiger, a tiger is chasing you. You go round and round and round. Unfortunately, what happens is that you are the one who will get tired first. And when that happens, the tiger will sit down and say, Brahmarpanam Brahmavi Swaha. Right? This is like karma. So therefore, you should know how to let go of the tail also. Before you hold the tail, remember to learn how to let go of the tail. And that is why we have 4 ashram concepts: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. You must learn what to do in each ashram. The next word is Bhogeshwarya Gatim Prati. The targets of these people, their obsessions are only 2. Bhogaha. Bhoga means Kama Purushartha. Desire, enjoyments only. And Aishwarya. Aishwarya means Artha Purushartha. Power. And therefore, Bhoga and Aishwaryam, money and pleasure, are their only target. And what will happen to them? Bhogeshwarya Prasaktanam, they are completely attached. Total Prasaktanam means totally attached to all these Arthakama things. And therefore, Taya Paharata Chetasam, their intellect has been lost. They find slowly, the discriminative power is gone. They find they cannot fulfill desires by legitimate means because the mind can develop desires very quickly. And therefore, Aparata Chetasam means your conscience has been stifled, suppressed. So Viveka Shakti has gone away. And therefore, he says, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi na vidiyate. Means you do not have the capacity for clarity of thinking. And where don't they have it? Samadhav. In their mind, there is no clear thinking at all. So this is what is the idea conveyed by these 3 verses. Very, very important for us to remember all our life. Let's stop here and you can, any questions you can ask.
Raviji, I have 2 questions.
Yes, please.
So the first one is like we will talk in the first verse about the difference between karma yogi and jnana yogi.
Yeah.
So
no, we are talking about karma yogi and karmi,
and
not jnana yogi. Karma yogi and karmi. Karma yogi is the one who has Ishvara in his mind. The karma yogi is the one who is saying, this is all there is. So I do my things for material benefits only. Karmi is that.
That's a karmi yogi.
No, karma yogi is the one who has Ishvara in his mind. Therefore, he works not just for the results. It, in fact, doesn't work for the results. He works for Chitta Shuddhi. The karmi works for results.
Okay.
Karmi you can take as the non-Vedantic person.
Okay. And the karma yogi recognizes that the freedom is within.
Yes.
And the jnani yogi recognizes that he is the freedom, or?
Jnani has claimed freedom already. Karma yogi recognizes but has not claimed.
Okay. And the second question is regarding what you mentioned about the sacrifices of the Vedas. So they are aimed to give us Chitta Shuddhi.
That is the intent of the Veda. Because everybody has desires, and only through fulfilling those desires in a manner where you are fulfilling them but dedicating it to the Lord, that is the only way Chitta Shuddhi can be obtained.
Because we get what we want, but we realize that it's not the ultimate happiness?
No, it is that you are doing something to get, but you surrender the result to the Lord. You say, whatever I get will be fine.
Okay, so because of that surrendering,
yeah,
you give Chitta Shuddhi for that humility and accepting the presence of the Lord.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have the last question was regarding I forgot.
Okay, next person, please.
Namaste, Acharyaji.
Yes, tell me.
Actually, it says in the 43rd Bhogeshwarya, So it is Bhoga Ishwarya or
Not
Bhoga
Aishwarya. Aishwarya.
Aishwarya.
Aishwarya is
Oh.
power.
Okay, thank you.
Om Acharya ji,
Yes, please.
I have one question. You mentioned Sattvic is a selfless activity. However, the desire to attain moksha often takes us sometimes, it gives us a confusion whether we should move towards the outward worldly activities or towards our own selfish gain for moksha. Would that desire for moksha be considered a selfish gain, or would it be? How do we?
If you are
describe that?
looking at the Shastric angle, there are two aspects. One is the lower aspect, one is the higher aspect. The lower aspect is that you consider moksha as a desire, and then Shastra said is okay, it is the purpose for which you are born. So the only legitimate desire you can have is for moksha. Okay, that is one part of it. The other part of it, a desire is for things which you don't have. And Shastra says that you are already free. Where is the question of not having Brahman? You are already Brahman. There is no question of whether you are Brahman or whether you will achieve Brahman or not, whether you will become Brahman or not. If you are Brahman, there is moksha already. So how can you desire something which you already have?
I understand that, but
That is
the
a higher
issue is that, right. But the problem is that the realization that we are Brahm, the knowledge may come from all the information or understanding of the Shastras, but the realization is the realization is a next step. So often, what is the step towards the realization that we are Brahm? Is the knowledge just going to just sink in its own time? Or
You have to do
there is
Nididhyasanam. Lots of, first of all, Shravanam, Maranam, Nididhyasanam. These three things are necessary. Before that, Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, that is necessary. Only to a prepared mind, Shastram will have an effect. Otherwise, you will be a professor of Sanskrit somewhere and still be as angry as ever all the time.
Thank you, Acharya.
Om Acharya ji,
Yes.
is philanthropy and donation sattvic or rajasic as a
Philanthropy, does it, you have, instead of asking question, like analyze it. What
Yes,
is,
I
who
thought
gets
about
the
it.
benefit?
So it gives some self benefit, but is it also to be a little
It is benefiting
showy or
others,
to,
right?
it does benefit,
Yes, it is
but
benefiting
sometimes
others.
people make a big ritual or a big show out of the whole thing, and that
Yeah, they are throwing away self-benefit, but the fact that it benefits others, that is not disputed at all.
so it would be sattvic large.
Largely sattvic. It could have a rajasic thing
Yeah.
depending upon whether you're doing it for showing off or not.
Right,
But the effect to others still remains. Benefit still remains.
benefit for others. Yes.
Om Acharya.
Yes, please.
My question is that when we had the Varna system, anybody who is born as a Brahmin has a better chance at doing sattvic activities.
You are wrong. Absolutely wrong. The Varna system did not talk about birth at all. It talked about guna and karma. The birth is a interpretation put in by human beings. That you will see in the 4th chapter. Krishna himself says Varna is based only on your guna and karma, not upon your birth.
Okay.
That birth is a distortion made by human beings. It is not there in Shastra.
Raviji?
Yeah.
So you mean to say that, sorry.
Go on, Sumana. Finish your question.
Yeah, so I mean, in the 4th chapter, we'll see that that hereditary lineage of being in the same Varna is distortion.
Is a distortion.
Okay, then I'll park my question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sir, Om
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
So these 3 verses are a detailed description of a karmi.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
So what about professions like a doctor or a teacher where they are benefiting others, but also it's a business where they are getting money out of it?
It largely depends upon their intention. There are a lot of doctors who charge a minimum amount and do the same service. And largely, if you look at the very, what they call well-known doctors, they may charge money, but their services are of very high quality. And they're charging money, they're benefiting. And a lot of doctors whom I know, they charge money from those who can afford it and run free clinics for those who don't.
Mhm.
You have to always look at the full analysis before you make a decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. One last question. Anybody?
Om Acharyaji, I have one. How do we find the balance between Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam versus the worldly activities that we have to undertake? And secondly, in continuation with this, therefore, you mentioned that the ashrams, whether you are in Grahas ashram or you are at the stage of Vanprastha ashram, how do we, where can we understand what exactly are the duties in Grahastha ashram? Where do they end and where does the transition into Vanashram take place?
It's very, very simple. That they your children are grown up and you have sufficiently taken care of them, your duties have ended. The rest of it is only attachment. So your duty to take care of your grandchildren is not for you, it's for children's benefit. Ideally, once the children are grown up and on their own, earning properly, married with children or whatnot, you should be withdrawing from all the activities. You may still be around,
But does that also mean what with relation to the spousal as well as the other relatives and everything, the withdrawal from that also happens?
Yes, it means that you need to withdraw and spend more time on your spiritual activity. It doesn't mean that you don't go and see them, okay, but and spiritual activity, obviously you got at least 14 to 15 working hours a day. You can surely spend 6 hours on Shravanam and Mananam. That is withdrawal. Because in today's world, Vanaprastha is not there. Like you don't go to the forest because there are no forests. You can simply make your own house into a forest.
Yes. Thank you, Acharya.
Okay, so with this we'll stop. Thank you so much for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you very much.
Thank you.